What's up, everybody? This is Kaiana Miller from the Hear Me Out Sports Podcast. We're talking my weekly wide receiver start sit, week 8. Let's get to it. Okay, like I said, talking week 8, we're going to actually review week 7 first. So how did I do? We all already know that week 5, week 6, I didn't do as well as I wanted to. Week 7, kind of continue that trend with a little caveat. So overall, I was 50%-ish overall, start and sit combined. But that being said, start I was only 12 out of 32. I told you to start at 32 different guys. Only 12 of them actually scored 12 or more points. That's only 38%. But like I said, it comes with a caveat. I had 9 close calls, including 7 guys who got 11 and a half or more points. So, those close calls go my way, and my numbers look much, much better. I mean, we're talking like almost 70% if those close calls go my way. So, again, I can be a little bit better, but overall, kind of a down week for wide receivers. Only 29 guys even had that threshold, and like I said, I got 12 of them. Sit side, I still did fine, 29 out of 40, but yep. So this week kind of looks like it was down like week 5 and like in week 6, but actually did better in my opinion this last week than I did in the previous 2. So hopping on to week 8, looking at the buys first. Kansas City Chiefs and LA Chargers are the 2 teams on bye. Juju obviously sit, and that's kind of sad because Juju's had a good couple weeks for fantasy the last 2 weeks. He's finally kind of catching on with this Kansas City Chiefs offense, and they're getting him more involved. But Juju's a sit. Mecole Hardman's a sit. On the Chargers side, Mike Williams is sit, but even if the Chargers were playing this week, he seems to be dealing with a pretty significant injury, so he's going to be sitting regardless, probably for at least 3 to 4 weeks, if not more. And then Keenan Allen, who's just coming back from injury, he's obviously a sit because they're on bye this week. So no Chiefs, no Chargers. Get them out of your lineup. They're all on bye for week 8. We're going to start off with our Thursday night game, Baltimore Ravens, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I had a little hope that this would be a good Thursday night game because the slate of Thursday night games this year has been pretty bad. But the Bucs have looked bad lately, and the Ravens have looked bad lately. So maybe it's just a Thursday night curse of 2022. But anyway, okay, who should we start? Who should we sit? Ravens side, I'm not starting any receivers. Lamar Jackson was awesome weeks 1 through 4, and he's been really bad weeks 5 through 7. So I'm not going to sit any wide receivers, especially against a Bucs team who has been fairly good defensively. I'm not going to start any of the Ravens wideouts. So sitting Devin DuVernay, sitting Rashad Bateman. Not going to play either of them until we figure out what the heck is going on with this Ravens offense. I don't want to blame Lamar. He hasn't looked great, but maybe it's Greg Roman instead, the offensive coordinator. So not playing any Ravens wide receivers this week. But on the Bucs side, going against one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL, and that's the Ravens pass defense. I'm starting Mike Evans, who looked awesome last week, even with a drop touchdown. So if he had caught that touchdown early in the game, there's another, it was probably a 60-yard touchdown, so that would have been another 13 points for everyone. But even without that, he still was a start last week. So I'm starting Mike Evans this week, starting Chris Godwin. Julio Jones, I don't even know if he's going to play the rest of the year. It doesn't seem like it. This little nagging injury has kept him out for the last 4 or 5 weeks. So I'm sitting Julio Jones even if he does play, and I'm sitting Russell Gage as well. But Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, fire him up. Broncos, Jags. Broncos, I told you to sit Sutton. I told you to sit Judy last week, and I was right on both. So yeah, sit those guys. Don't start them. They haven't done much. Even with Russell Wilson, only a couple worthy starts total throughout the whole season for both of them combined. So sitting Sutton, sitting Judy, especially if Ripien plays. I don't even care. Even if Wilson plays, I'm still sitting both those guys. Jag side, Christian Kirk's been awesome this year. I'm going to keep playing him. He's kind of a plug and play for me. I own him in a few different leagues. So if he's not on bye or not injured, I'm playing him no matter what every week. And sit him side on the Jags, sitting Zay Jones, also sitting Marvin Jones Jr. I've liked what Marvin Jones Jr. has done this year, but I think the Broncos' pass defense is one of their strengths. So I'm going to sit those guys. Panthers, Falcons. My beloved Panthers showing some signs of life. And it's kind of wild and an indicator of how terrible the NFC South is this year, that the Panthers are only 1 game out of first place in the division, even though they were 1-5 before the game last week. So they're 2-5 right now, and they're only 1 game back of the Falcons and the Bucs. So if they beat the Falcons this week and the Bucs lose on Thursday night, then the Panthers will actually be leading the division at 3-5. So that's pretty pathetic. But all that beside the point, PJ Walker was allowed to actually throw the ball further than 1 yard down the field, past the line of scrimmage. In the last weekend, he looked really good, very efficient, no turnovers. I don't expect this. I've watched PJ Walker with Panthers over the last couple years, and I don't expect this to continue, but the Falcons aren't a great defense. So in this week specifically, I think PJ Walker can get it done again. I got DJ Moore as a start finally. He looked awesome last week. And I think that actually having McCaffrey not on the team has forced Carolina to kind of spread the ball to its other playmakers. So that's good for everyone else involved. So DJ Moore is a start. Terrace Marshall, I almost wanted to start him, but I'm leaving him and Shai Smith on the bench. Falcons side, they were trailing the entire game last week to the Bengals, and they still only threw it 13 times. So I don't care who the receivers are. You could have Randy Moss in his prime. You could have Jerry Rice in their prime. And on this Falcons team, I won't even play those guys because they're not going to have enough opportunity. So sitting Drake London, sitting Olamide Zacchaeus for the Falcons. Bears, Cowboys, Bears with a surprising win on Monday night against New England. But even with that win, even with 33 points scored, they didn't have any wide receivers that scored 12 points or more in fantasy football. So I'm sitting all those guys still. Darnell Mooney, N'Keal Harry, Equanimous St. Brown, sitting all of them. Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, I'm going to keep starting. I'm not, honestly, and I've said this before, I'm not a big CeeDee Lamb fan, haven't ever been, but he gets enough volume in that passing offense for the Cowboys to warrant starting. So I'm starting CeeDee Lamb. But I'm going to sit Michael Gallup, who didn't look good last week with Dak, and I'm sitting Noah Brown, who hasn't looked good since week 2. So sitting both those guys, only starting CeeDee Lamb in this game. Dolphins, Lions. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, say it every week, they're plug and play. If you have them on your team, you put them in. So those guys, and Cedric Wilson still leaving on the bench. Detroit Lions, I said this. I hope everyone was listening. This concussion change to the protocols that the NFL did because of the Tua injury, but more because of the image of Tua's injury, is bad for football. Anytime you make hasty rule changes based off one incident, it never turns out well. Just like the pass interference, being able to challenge pass interferences, they did that for the year because the Saints game in the playoffs. So that turned out bad. This is going to turn out bad. Amon-Ra didn't even have a concussion last week, and they still made him sit out the rest of the game, which obviously annihilated fantasy owners, but he wanted to play. So kind of ridiculous. But I'm firing him up against a pretty good Dolphins defense this week. I think that the Lions are going to be trailing early, and they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. And ARSB, the Sun God, is going to get plenty of volume. But I'm sitting all the other Detroit Lions wide receivers. Cardinals, Vikings. Cardinals side, I said to start Nuke, DeAndre Hopkins last week, and, he did awesome. I'm expecting him to get 10-plus targets every game here on out. Even when Hollywood Brown returns, I'm curious how that's going to look with Hollywood and DeAndre Hopkins both playing at the same time because both those guys from Kyler likes to throw to. So fire up DeAndre Hopkins. Rondell Moore, I'm actually going to play this week, even though he hasn't had a good last couple games. I'm still starting this week. I think the Cardinals and the Vikings might be one of the higher scoring games of the week. So starting 2 receivers on each side. On the Vikings side, starting Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Those are the 2 guys. Cardinals, real quick to mention, Robbie Anderson, he's still new there, and he's primarily a deep threat. That's all he's really done in his career so far. So the only way he can even get those 12 points is if he scores a long touchdown. I expect that to happen against the Vikings. So starting Jefferson, starting Thielen, starting Nuke Hopkins, and starting Rondell Moore. Raiders, Saints. Raiders, Devontae Adams, another plug-and-play guy. Hunter Renfrow, I'm going to leave on the bench. The Saints' defense is good enough to hold at least one of their receivers to not be able to start. So I think Devontae Adams is the only start on the Raiders side. On the Saints side, Chris Olave, again, I think the Raiders will be leading in this game. Not by a crazy margin, but will be leading enough that the Saints will have to throw the ball. And Chris Olave is the receiver to own. He has been, honestly, all year. He's their best receiver, even with Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry healthy. Chris Olave is still the best receiver. So I'm starting Chris Olave. Jarvis Landry, if he plays this week, and I kind of do expect him to finally be able to suit up this week, I would also put him as a start for the Saints. But I'm sitting all the other Saints wide receivers. Moving on to the Patriots and the Jets. Jets, real quick, I'm going to sit every receiver on that team until Zach Wilson proves that he can actually throw the ball and that the Jets can have an offense that's not entirely run-based. So sitting all receivers on that side. Patriots side, even though the Jets' D has been awesome this year, even though Sauce Gardner and the other defensive backs for the Jets have been great, I'm still starting Jacoby Myers off of volume alone. I expect him for the Patriots to have enough targets and have enough catches to push them over that 12-point threshold, but I'm sitting the other Patriots wide receivers. Steelers Eagles. So this was a little bit difficult for me on the Steelers side. George Pickens might be their most talented, just raw overall. I think that Deontay Johnson's their most, like the currently most talented, not physically gifted, but most talented wide receiver that they have on their team. But for whatever reason, Kenny Pickett really likes George Pickens. Every game that Pickett started, Pickens has had a good game. So I'm starting George Pickens against a great Eagles defense, or what seemed to be a great Eagles defense. I'm sitting the volume guy, Deontay Johnson, and then Chase Claypool, who's had honestly one good game all year. No reason to start him. Eagles side, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, starting both of them. They've both looked good, and I think they keep looking good against a bad Steelers defense. Tennessee Titans, Houston Texans. Titans, again, one of those teams I'm not starting any receivers on really ever the whole entire year. They're just not worth it. So not starting any Titans receivers. Houston Texans, Brandon Cooks, just because they're going to be trailing. I don't think that there's going to be enough. I don't think the Texans will have the ball enough to warrant multiple guys starting on their team on offense. So I'm only starting Brandon Cooks. Tennessee's going to run the ball and just kind of grind out that clock. So only starting Brandon Cooks. Nico Collins, even though I like him, I'm putting him on the bench. Commanders and Colts. Terry McLaurin, start. I started him last week as well in a few different leagues, and it turned out well. Him and Heineke have a good relationship from previous years, and I think that's just the connection that Heineke's the most comfortable with. So I think McLaurin is the one Washington Commanders receiver to own as long as Heineke's in the starting lineup. So give me McLaurin, but I'm sitting Samuel and Dotson. Colts side, they're switching from Matt Ryan to Sam Ehlinger, and we'll see how it looks. But I expect the Colts to run the ball quite a bit. I think that they're going to try to lean on Jonathan Taylor and maybe even Deion Jackson a little bit in this game. So I'm only starting one Colts receiver, and that's Michael Pittman, who's been really great this year, even with pretty subpar quarterback play. So give me Michael Pittman as the go-to for the young quarterback, Sam Ehlinger. And I'm sitting Pierce, and I'm sitting Paris Campbell. For the 49ers, I'm actually starting Brandon Ayuk purely because Jimmy Garoppolo seems to love throwing him the ball. But I'm sitting Deebo Samuel. I think as Christian McCaffrey gets more involved in the offense, the person that it'll affect the most is Deebo Samuel because some of those, Deebo design specific plays can now go to a guy like Christian McCaffrey. So I'm sitting Deebo this week. He didn't have a great game last week, and I don't expect him to have a good game this week either. Jalen Ramsey, who I think is one of the most overrated players in the NFL, but is nevertheless still good enough to sometimes slow down your top wideout. I think he'll be on Deebo most of the game, and so I'm sitting Deebo this week. Rams side, Cooper Kupp starting. Don't even need to talk about it. Allen Robinson, yeah, I know he's had a good last game against Carolina, but a lot of that was jump ball in the end zone, so not starting Allen Robinson. Giants Seahawks, Wan'Dale Robinson, I said since week 1, is the Giants receiver to own. Especially when they're all healthy, he's still the Giants receiver to own. He's their most dynamic guy, and they're scheming up plays specifically for him. They like him. They like what he brings to the table. I'm starting Wan'Dale against a bad Seahawks team, and I'm sitting all the other Giants receivers on the Seahawks. DK Metcalf, he says it isn't serious, but he is injured, and I do not expect him to play. Even if he does play, I wouldn't start him against the Giants, but I am starting Tyler Lockett. I expect the Seahawks to be trailing and won't be able to run the ball as much as they want. So I expect Tyler Lockett to have a lot of volume in this one from Geno, and that's going to push him into a starting fantasy position this week. Marquise Goodwin, he's a 31-year-old wide receiver. He had a fluke game because DK got hurt, and they weren't preparing for him specifically. Now that the Giants, they know that Marquise is going to be playing stuff, I don't expect him to really do much this game. So give me just Tyler Lockett on the Seahawks side. Packers, Bills. Packers suck. I said it before the season started. No way they're winning the NFC North, much less doing any real damage throughout the year. Alan Lazard, though, I'm going to play him this week just on the hope that he scores a touchdown because they're going to be trailing by 100 to the Bills. So give me Alan Lazard as the only Green Bay Packers receiver worth starting. Buffalo Bills side, Stephon Diggs, plug and play always, but I'm sitting Gabe Davis and Isaiah McKenzie. And last game of the week, Monday night, Bengals-Browns, the AFC North division game. Give me Jamar Chase. Give me T. Higgins. Both those guys I'll play every week that they're starting. Tyler Boyd had an awesome game last week, and I really do like Tyler Boyd, but I don't think that the Bengals are going to have to throw it to all three of those guys this week to really win the game. So give me Jamar. Give me T. Higgins. for the Bengals. On the Cleveland side, Amari Cooper has been pretty solid, pretty steady for them. And I expect them to be trailing. The Bengals defense isn't great. So start Amari Cooper, fire him up, but sit Donovan Peoples-Jones. And that wraps it up for week 8 start sit for wide receivers. I'm happy to answer questions on any of these, any of my opinions. And as always, hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Instagram. I run our Twitter handle. Jace, I think, runs our Instagram. So ask us any questions. I've been getting a lot of questions on trades lately for Dynasty League specifically, and I love answering those kinds of questions. So look for future videos about trade negotiation strategies within fantasy. But just to let everyone know, we're in that time of year where people like to send really crappy offers and just hope you accept them. So don't be accepting any nonsense or any trash, but hit us up on Twitter, hit us up on Instagram, tell us what you think of our content. We're trying to bring you guys quality content and help out as much as we can. We don't call ourselves fantasy football analysts because at the end of the day, my opinion is just that. It's an opinion. It's statistically based. That's my background. But again, it is an opinion. If I could accurately predict the future, then I'd be making hundreds of millions of dollars playing daily fantasy. So if I could always predict the future, then I wouldn't need to have any sort of day job. But here I am working, kind of. But as always, let us know what you think. Let us know where you messed up. And if I cost you games, if I cost you seasons, if I cost you wins, let me know, and I'll cover your league fee. So get at me. Tell me how crappy you think I am. Hit the like button or smash the dislike button. I don't care. Just engage with us. We like hearing from all of you, and we appreciate everyone who tunes in, who listens to us, who comments, who asks us questions. We do it for you guys. So, again, we're very appreciative of that. As always, when in doubt, hear me out.